program, which would primarily go towards the funding of environmental restoration studies and projects. This funding dwarfs the insufficient $6.1 million that was requested for an entire operations and maintenance fund that it supports the area covering the entire region from Sioux City to the mouth of the Missouri in St. Louis. It's preposterous to think that environmental projects are more important than the protection of human life. The Missouri River Ecosystem Restoration Plan, or Mr. ERP, is slated to receive $4 million or of the more than $72 million in federal funding that will go towards the Missouri River Recovery Program. This program is only one of the many Missouri ecosystem recovery programs funded by American taxpayers, and Mr. ERP is one of no fewer than 70 environmental and ecological studies focused on the Missouri River. The people who have to foot the bill for these studies and projects, many of which take years to complete and are ultimately inconclusive, are the very people who are at risk of losing their farms, their businesses, their homes, and even their lives today. I do not take for granted the importance of river ecosystems. I grew up near the Missouri River, as did many of the people I represent in Congress. But we have now reached a point in our nation where we value the welfare of fish more than the welfare of human beings. Our priorities are backwards. My amendment, supported by the Coalition to Protect the Missouri River and the Missouri Farm Bureau, proposes a prohibition of funding for the Mr. ERPS program. The end of this study will in no way jeopardize the Corps' ability to meet requirements under the Endangered Species Act. What this amendment will do is eliminate one of the many ecosystem studies along the river, a study that has become little more than a tool of the administration for the promotion of the return of the river to its most natural state, with little regard for navigation, trade, power generation, or the many people who depend on the Missouri River and adjacent lands for their livelihoods. This study has the potential to result in river management that is environmentally driven rather than focused on balancing the needs of the environment with those along the river and our wonderful communities. We've seen this same scenario play out on a nationwide basis. The result is increased unemployment, reduced trade, economic depression, and sometimes questionable environmental results. Mr. Chairman, the funding for Mr. ERPS should go forward. Should the funding for Mr. ERPS go forward, we must stop and think about what we're doing. I urge my colleagues to support this amendment, to support our nation's river communities, and with that I yield 1 minute to the gentlelady from Missouri.